Hello and welcome along to Mondo Chelloveck Movies. My name is John, and today I've done a double bill of Alien on 4K and also Aliens on 4K. So first up, obviously, is Alien. Now, when I opened this up, I got my receipt here. Now, my receipt is from the 7th of June, 2019. That's when I bought this, and this is the first time I've watched this. So I'm really glad when I picked it up when I did, so I could secure myself this lovely slipcover. This movie for me is a horror movie. I don't class it as a sci-fi movie, although it's a massive sci-fi elements into it. To me, it just has all the beats of a horror movie. It has all the tension of a horror movie. I think the sets in here are absolutely fantastic. By 1979, because they kind of did it in a retro way, that all the stuff is kind of worn and all the buttons and everything do look a little bit primitive. I think that doesn't date it. I think they try to make this like really glossy. I don't think it would have worked at all. I like the fact that the stuff looks like it's been used and used a lot, and it adds to the realism. Actually, the way that the characters play this movie, it's as if it's kind of most of it's just chit chat when they're like talking to each other, which I think is a good way to do this movie. It gets you surprised when these things start to pick up. And I won't speak too much about the movies because I know that everyone's probably seen these two a lot and know everything about them. But I've got to say the cast in here as well. When I look at it, when I just see the cast, and I just think this cast was amazing. The more I watch, well, I haven't watched this for a long time, but the more I watch this movie, I'm kind of blown away by the actual stars they've got, or upcoming stars they've got to go into one movie. And the 4K on here is one of the best 4Ks I've ever seen. The black levels on here are inky black. Everything about it is crystal clear. It looks 100% realistic. There's no flaws I can give to this presentation on this 4K at all. It doesn't have Dolby Atmos. Unfortunately, if it had Dolby Atmos, then this would be a 10 out of 10 disc, as opposed to a 9 out of 10 disc. Don't get us wrong, the soundtrack on here is absolutely brilliant. Speaking about the soundtrack, has anybody ever realized, and I just realized this today on this watch, there's a bit of music in here that's directly from The Shining, which came out a year later. And I thought, hang on a minute, what's going on here? But when I looked online, it is the same bit of music when the people are going into the maze in The Shining, and you get this eerie sort of creepy music, but it's some classical music that's just out there. And the director Ridley Scott and also Stanley Kubrick used that same bit of music. So don't think you're hearing things. That's actually a thing, which I was quite surprised. I was thinking, hang on a minute. So I had to look at my phone. What I did do, I didn't have my phone at all, but I had to go and look at my phone and say what's going on with this. So that's quite surprising. But I've got to say, this is a demo quality disc. Yes, it's like pretty dark. The best thing about it is, though, when I used to watch this on VHS, especially, you could not make out anything that's going on. But in this one, you can see all the kills that happen in the shadows, and the sort of the quality of people's faces with all the sweat on it. It looks, actually everyone's sweating all the way through the movie, and the glistening, and it just brings out something in the 4K just brings that out, and it just plays that, and the colors and skin tones are just perfection. So for me, this is, like I say, a demo disc, and I can't rate this highly enough. And I'm so glad I watched it. And I thought, right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to watch them, two of them back to back, which I rarely do because you're talking about 5.5 hours. But I've done it, and I share what I think about when I've actually watched the full version of Aliens right about now. So Aliens on 4K, as I previously mentioned, looks fantastic. But I'll go more into that because I've watched this fully. Now, what I did was I put this on and I was looking at it not to judge it. I thought, am I going to have a good time in this 4K? That was my immediate thoughts on it. I wasn't going to sit and pick it apart. I was going to let it play. If anything popped up there was, I would speak about it. I've got to say, just on a note of did I like this movie? Yes, I loved it, and actually watching it back to back with Alien was really good. It's because it follows on directly from the other one, and I don't know. I just like doing that. I don't know if I could do that every time I watch it, but I really enjoyed it. Now, it's best to watch these both at night. Watching them through the day isn't the best experience, although this one looks a bit better. You've got the full screen on it, and you've also got the fact that it's quite bright in some places, but you do get a lot of dark atmospheric things. Now, when I've watched this fully, obviously, I watched the director's cut. I watched the director's cut on that one as well, the longer cut, because I do prefer both cuts of that. I could have watched the two shorter ones and had it, but it's not the way I like to watch the movies because I like them extra bits. I think they play out better with having them in the movie. And so I watched when I watched this, like I say, I've got a few screenshots to put up, which to try and get my point across about what I think about this movie. But do take into consideration that you will see a lot of reflections from that stuff on the wall and the door frame. It's unfortunate that happens, but I couldn't do anything about it to get the screenshots. So the audio is perfection. And when I was watching the movie, I was determined just to put it on and have a good time with it, and I did. But there's a few points what I've got to bring up about when I watched this. It didn't spoil my enjoyment of it. There was just a few things I think I would mention with actually watching this fully. Now, what in my opinion, when you see sharp pictures, the sharpness in this movie, it is pin sharp. And I mean, it's one of the sharpest things I've ever seen on a 4K. I couldn't believe what the details you can see in people's faces, especially with, like I say, the beads of sweat. There's just something about it. It's just jaw dropping. The quality and the sharpness that can get out of this print. Now, on that, on some of them, I feel when the people are close to the camera, that's when you see the best detail ever. When they're far away from the camera, you do tend to get less detail. Now, though that's obvious, isn't it? But in my view, that it seems as if in some scenes when you get a group of people together, it seems as if it looks a little bit smooth and as if it's not natural in a way that, how can I put it? You don't look at it, but it's just because you've seen something on the other extreme of this ultra sharp picture. Then in another scene quite close to it, you can see one that's a bit smoother. It doesn't take me out of the movie, but I just noticed it. And did I notice it more because of these ultra sharp scenes? More about that in a minute. So I played it all the way through. The colours in here, it's funny because with having this enhancement on this picture, you would think the colours were really, in your face. And they're not really. The colours are it's quite a blue movie in times. There's a bit of red. There's a bit when there's this red light, and that's a great scene. That it looks fantastic actually, but it's not overblown. The colours in here aren't too much. They're not going to be in your face. They're actually doing a great job on the colouring. You think if they're going to do something with AI on the features, it would show up in the colours, but it doesn't. Actually, the clothes that they wear, the clothes are ultra sharp as well. Even when you do think there's a bit of smoothing on the face, everything else is pin sharp. It's quite strange, actually. So I would say that on a full watch of the 4K, I'll go more about the Blu-ray in a moment. On the 4K, I would say it is a bit of a mixed bag. It is ultra sharp, and there's no grey in it. What I could say, I didn't see a bit of grey at all. And actually, funny enough, in the first movie, which from 1979, it's just absolutely crystal clear that there's obviously no trickery done to it. There's no green in there for me either, which is a bit strange. So what I did was, and this is the revelation of this video, for me anyway, I put the Blu-ray on just to see what the Blu-ray is like, just to put them, side by side. And actually, when I watched it, I went back and watched the scenes when I thought, the ones that stood out for me, like people together in a group, and also the bit where people were ultra sharp, and the next one when they weren't. And I've got to say that the Blu-ray in here is probably the best Blu-ray I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Now, what it does is, it seems to me, in my opinion, that it has the sort of the softness of the people in the groups isn't really there. The ultra sharpness of the people right up the camera isn't there. It seems to be right in the middle. It's if you don't like the sharpness, the thing too sharp, you've got the Blu-ray. If you don't like the things too smooth in certain scenes, you've got the Blu-ray. So it's funny this. I'm going to say the next time I watch Aliens, I'm going to watch the Blu-ray because although I can't believe what I'm looking at in the 4K, and I do think the 4K is absolutely amazing, and I will go back to 4K. I do want to give the Blu-ray a chance because I do think the Blu-ray offers something in the middle. So what I would have liked to see on here, which isn't on here, I would like to see something where Cameron could have come on and said, right, I've done AI in this, and this is how I did it, and this is what I've done with it. But there's nothing like that in it, unfortunately. Now, speaking about Cameron, I've got a feeling that some of his movies, like The Abyss, Aliens, there's the Terminator 2, especially, they've all got a similar look. If you put them on, you can spot a James Cameron movie just by the way it looks. Now, I know Terminator 2, I haven't got the 4K, but I've got the updated Blu-ray, and that looks quite, as if it's been tinkered with. And I'm interested to see what he does with the original Terminator, because I think that's really gritty. That could be spoilt if he goes for the Cameron look. On reflection, after looking at this one, I do think the 4K is one of the sharpest 4Ks I've ever seen in my life. It looks spectacular. If you are a grain hater, you'd love this one because the grain's gone. Now, the sharpness, it's weird because in some scenes it's so sharp you can't believe it. You can't believe what you're actually looking at. The skin pores, you can see every skin pore in the face. But in other ones, it looks a little like, say, on the stand a bit like further away from the camera. They do tend to get a bit smoother. But that's not really taking anything away from it, because I did enjoy it. When I watched it, I thought, I've had a great time with this. And that's what it's about at the end of the day. If you enjoy it, it's job done. So to recap, the 4K on here looks absolutely amazing. I have got no problems with this whatsoever. And the 4K on here looks absolutely stunning. But if you think that some of the scenes have been smoothed out a bit, and some of them do look a little bit smooth, it doesn't take away from the movie away from me at all. But if you think that, do look at the Blu-ray on here, or maybe even go for the Blu-ray if you do get a separate Blu-ray on this. Because I've got to say, in my estimation, this is probably the best Blu-ray I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. It's like a little bit down. It's a step down from the 4K, but it takes away the fact of it being ultra sharp and also smooth in some places. You kind of get a middle ground on it, which I think is absolutely brilliant. So if you're sitting on the fence with this one, you have got the option to get the ultra sharp one, or maybe the one that looks a bit more naturalistic, which is the Blu-ray. So that's my thoughts on watching these two back to back. It's been a bit of a marathon, but I've really enjoyed it. So I want to thank Dave and Gill one more time for sending this across to me. Really appreciate that. And thanks for watching. You take care, especially you, Dave and Jill, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.